first off, well, of course, thanks for joining me on the Zero Cafe podcast. But first, we would like to know a bit more about you and your backgrounds, because almost no one has a background studying Zero at school. That's not a thing for most of us. I mean, in recent years, there are some colleges picking this up, but for most of us, that's not our background. So we would love to know how did you get started with this, and how did you roll into Zero as a profession?
Awesome. I mean, first off, love to be here. Great podcast. I've been listening to other episodes, and you're right. Zero is not taught in schools and things like that. For me, it started off. It's really strange. I started optimizing storylines and scripts and things like that by watching movies.
Yeah.
One of my first movies that I saw in a theater was Jurassic Park.
The original.
It's back then in 1994. 1994. Since then it started relaying out. Okay, what if the director had made this cut in a different order, or what if there was a flaw and the director did not pick it up, or the film crew did not pick it up? What if it was Jurassic Park and there was a plane flying above, right? That's incorrect. I mean, not stating that was the thing in Jurassic Park, but there's so many such mistakes that you get to see, especially by vetting others' work, and you have to carry that in your.
So you were watching those movies like second by second, frame by frame, to see what they did, or?
Nope. It was just flowing, right? It was just flowing, and I got this intrinsic ability where I could actually pick out flaws and state that, okay, this is incorrect. That was a natural tendency, because that's way too back in time. But obviously I studied, grew up, did my engineering and information science and engineering, which is equivalent to information technology elsewhere. And then quite clearly, I had this notion of technological aspects, the limitations of what a particular landing page could be, and how we could increase speed or performance. And I also had this flair towards storytelling and getting the right concept, the right notion, just seeing things as users do. Some of the biggest wins that I've got in my A/B testing career is just by understanding how people actually behave, how they interact with their daily lives. One of my biggest A/B test success is a 500% uplift, and that struck at the dead of night. Probably this was 2016, where I had a lot of laundry pending, and I had to get my washing machine up. And that thing was happening, and I was watching this series which was called The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot would have heard. And I'm an Indian, right? And I was at the time working for a US site. So how do I learn cultures? And obviously, I've been seeing Hollywood movies, and I know a lot. But there's also this notion where you get to see certain things, where you get to visualize certain things. Imagining how things are set up, how things are shown, and things like that. So on one hand, I've got my washing machine which is running, and that is throwing, different kinds of lights and all of that. Yeah, and on the other hand, I'm seeing television where on the telly, Penny is talking to Sheldon, and they're driving in a car, and Sheldon is petrified because Penny's car, the engine check light on is on. It has caught his attention, and he's petrified that, okay, the oil in the engine might not be up to the mark. So I got this readily available notion where I could connect. I was working on a lead gen site, and I knew audience at the back of my mind were not like youngsters. They could pick up design cues and things like that. We had a pretty big lead gen firm. And I introduced phone leads, and there was a dialer which was blinking, and attracting end users' attention right there. They could click that, easily speak to a rep and give their information and collect everything. And this was based on a particular zip code where we covered services and things like that. And the next day when I looked up, I mean, little analytics and all of that, I looked up database as well, and yeah, it was through the roof. So so that happened because of a simple change. What I did was, adding animate.css to a dialog, and that was blinking in a way
Yeah.
where, where people would interact with actual devices and how what they're used to. That picked up
Yeah.
their attention, and there was a need for them to actually utilize.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of cognitive
And
ergonomics and
yeah,
how people pay attention and
yeah,
like indeed with Penny in the car, the engine light is blinking or maybe not even blinking, just turned on, but it's always turned on. Nothing happens,
yeah,
so apparently it's fine. Nothing happened so far.
yeah.
Yeah,
That and it's like a learning table, right? Right here, what I do is, I'm always learning. I'm like, I'm on an infinite learning curve, always learning. Even with our conversation and things like that, there's always scope
yeah,
for learning. You know, and it's about, we've laid out on this particular platform where I'm learning from you as
yeah.
well.
That's good.
And it's same it's same for all sensory organs, right? Be it hearing or seeing stuff or understanding the
Yeah,
context behind. So the blinking effect, I got that the engine check light is always on, but the blinking effect came down when I was driving down an Indian road. It was a busy stretch. There's so many shops around, but only a medical shop or a pharmacy got my attention because its board was propping out a little bit outside, and there's this plus sign that chemists and pharmacists use here in India, which is a green plus sign, and that was blinking. There were like literally hundreds and hundreds of shops, and I still recall just knowing this particular outlet because the sign was blinking and it was direct in the in the line
yeah,
of sight. So I could irrespective of big boards and things like that, which are all parallel to me, uh, I couldn't see them. And there's this one tiny board which sticks out, and there's that sign that's blinking, and I know, okay, here's a medical shop. I don't have to brake abruptly. I know that that's coming up. I could go and park
yeah.
safely, right? And that's the feature because there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of
Yeah.
traffic behind as well,
Yeah, traffic is a very
and
interesting
that
topic for some of my former colleagues in university that are in that area in either traffic for cars on the road
yeah
or I remember a lot of examples in my study. I've told it a couple of times, but my study had done nothing to do at university had nothing to do with anything online. There were a lot of offline examples there, but one of them was, for example, with
yeah
train drivers, or I think maybe the engineers that they are called. I think the people steering the steering the trains or guiding them
yeah
over the
yeah
tracks,
yeah yeah
and a lot of them were missing signs like the red signs basically, and then they just drove through them, causing accidents, and so people in my profession started taking pictures. Okay, what did they actually see outside of the windows? And usually it's a big mess. You really spread. There are a lot of
yeah
lines going everywhere, especially when you approach
yeah
stations. There are a lot of different tracks, a lot of overhead lines
yeah
with all the power cables, and a lot of there are a lot of signs everywhere. And then you understand, yeah, that's information overload. It's very easy to imagine someone missing a sign. So what can we do about that? And same thing for
yeah.
regular roads.
So,
Yeah,
absolutely, and that's where when you're designing systems or building landing pages or working on a product and things like that, you have to have this user
yeah,
centricity notion in place. You've got to have certain heuristics in place. Easily things could go wrong, but just sitting in their shoes and understanding, okay, how is that this particular person is going to perceive the kind of information that you put. You could state something which makes sense to you as a business owner or as a practitioner, but is that tangible enough, right? Is that 100% being conveyed to the other person who's reading it? because in the end of the day, it's not all about the sites and things like that, because we want to impact the end user's
Yeah.
perception, the mind, and obviously the product has to be full of value proposition. If not, you cannot sell
Yeah.
it, and that's how it is. And it's simple that if you miss out on that step, there's always going to be something like this happening where you don't know. For example, there's a copywriter who's writing a landing page for, but does not know who the
Yeah.
audience is. What is that he's
Yeah.
going to write about?
Exactly.
Right? If there's no persona which is in the back of his mind, the kind of wants and the kind of pain points that he has, he's not able to draft something which sets in such a way where it communicates all the value propositions and all the benefits
Yeah.
in such a way, right? Where as and when a person reads, my thumb rule is, again, heuristic is as and when people read content, they have to nod their
Yeah.
head in agreement. If they're not, it's so diverse, then try and reach a common point where the other person or different types of personas
Yeah,
agree to a point.
especially if
That
you have a really wide
you know,
audience for your website or for your product in
yeah,
general, there
yeah,
can be a lot of different ways
yeah,
people view this, right? That's always what I find very
yeah,
interesting when doing user research and giving people basically the same stimuli or the same website, the same product, and you get so many different opinions on
absolutely,
that. It's a bit like you can
absolutely.
imagine those Rorschach tests that psychologists use. The ink blobs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone sees
yeah,
something
yeah,
different. And you might not
yeah.
expect this with websites. I mean, they're less ambiguous than, than an ink blob, you hope, but there's still so many different ways of viewing something because of your background or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, your background is different, your
Yeah.
cultures are different, you're brought up differently, and the way there's also this test that I recall of, where I think this was conducted in India, where a person walks up to a group of children playing, and says that this there's children playing from different backgrounds. There are poor children, and there was as well as rich affluent families who are coming and playing in the ground. And to one set, this particular guy hands out a box of sweet and says that, if you're willing to wait 10 more minutes, I'm going to give you two boxes of sweet. Yeah, and guess what? What happens? Children from rich and affluent backgrounds can wait because they've already eaten such sweets. They're going to think like, okay, 10 more minutes, I'm going to get two boxes of sweet. If not, if everything, all of this was a hoax,
Exactly.
there's no worry, because I'll end up eating sweets anyway. But if you flip that equation, and for a guy from a poor background, or for a child from a poor background, he's never eaten a box of sweets. He's going to grab that immediately and run away. Right? His even though if entire thing was true, and his even if he was going to get two boxes, but he's not going to wait, because there's just that urge that he's not eating sweets, and he wants to grab that right now and,
Yeah.
and run away.
Yeah, and there's research going on for with doing this exact test with children, right? And having that as a prediction for future success. And apparently there's some correlation there, at least, with the kids that can
Yeah,
wait.
yeah.
Well, you're more patient, and that apparently leads to or correlates to more success in your future.
Even at
Yeah,
work, right? Even at work, especially the newer age, the newer workforce, they don't know how to delay gratification.
yeah,
It's like, okay, I want to join a company, I want to reach this post, I want to do that, I want to do this, but they do not think for a
yeah,
second. or rather about the company.
And that's how a lot of companies are organized, right? I mean, you have the most people work with really short term incentives, whether that's bonuses or
Yep.
just general appraisal for the work that you do. It's all short term. It needs to be
Yep.
successful this week, this month, this quarter, or at least the longest term is probably this year, but it's still relatively short term if you look at
Yep.
business. And I see that's
Yep.
an issue. That's a challenge for a lot of people, specifically in CRO. Because a CRO program is not, if you set it up properly, it's not going to give a big result in 4 weeks.
Yep. Yep. And it's, even if you did get it, it does not mean that it's going to repeat, right? Because it's a long learning process. Because it's not about wins and losses. It's kind of insights that you get and the kind of areas that you apply at. If you're at a larger organization, say if it is making billions of dollars, one such insight is really going to give you millions of dollars in uplift in revenue or in average order values. And just imagine a series of A/B testing, tests across acquisition or across shopping carts and things like that for over a period of a year. The cumulative cart revenue, for example, could the impact could be huge. And that's what businesses wouldn't understand. And they're like, okay, Sumantha, can you get this done in a week? I've done things like that in the past, especially while consulting, where there was this particular huge I'll not be able to name them, but at least the segment is classifieds, online classifieds, and they've got like 300 sites. Yeah. And I did a simple teardown of their site, and the very next day I'm on a plane meeting their VP of product, their VP of engineering, their CTO, for example. Yeah. And that's the power that we could spread, and that's the impact that we could actually show it to them. And this organization had a lot of best talent around, because they came from premier Indian institutes like Indian Institute of Technology, for example. The product managers were, they all studied in IITs. Some of the great institutes the world has ever seen, because the knowledge that these institutes spread is immense. The technological process is out of this world, and some of the employees who were part of this particular organization, they did not know what experimentation was or what conversion rate optimization meant. They're open about it, and that's how you have to also establish that rapport between, say, a consultant and an internal team member, where they get to see that, okay, that you're an extension of their arm, basically. Yeah, it's not like you go there and say, go left and right and say that you did this wrong, you did that wrong, this is not how it is done, but rather build rapport and know what's the inside story, what is that they're working on, and how is that you could actually help and achieve the benefits for the company, right?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, right? Because you also started the story when you started watching movies. You said I developed a keen eye to see flaws, which is useful as a CRO,
and that's how
which is useful, but it's not a nice trait to have in conversations or in meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like there's this 600 odd crore company which is doing a lot of great business, and you go there and say that you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. I mean, just imagine if I talk about Apple, for example, a $1 trillion company, and I go there to a product guy and say that you've done this wrong, you've done that wrong.
Exactly. You need to do some translation, basically, into some nicer words.
Exactly.
Phrase it in a better way.
Nicer words, and it is also about identifying certain patterns where they've actually done stuff well, right? And there's already a foundation, and you want to create a structure. You want to create this regimen where that works like clockwork, right? This regimen of experimentation, of getting things done. And we had like a week's time before the huge ad rollout was due here in India. Massive budgets, and we worked on registration, and the organization gained a lot a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of newer signups, and if that thing plays a regular, almost that uplift actually increases your bottom line as well, the number of paid customers, because you're putting in more users in engaging with their apps and websites and stuff. So it's about, it's a two-way street, right? It's about them realizing that, and they did mention that they've got conversion. That's a great sign that that's a great sign that the client is willing to put effort as well. And for our AB experimentation programs, we had the top level priority, and I've seen some of the best engineers work with me in creating funnels and in QAing things. Probably a floor full of 200 odd product designers, content writers, QA testers, support teams, and things like that. And I had the number one priority. I mean, that's a boost as well, right? I mean, I was the kind of guy who'd reach early there. I was stationed at their workplace for about 3 to 4 weeks, and on a daily regimen. Being one of the first guys, the VP of product would always be, but I was the last guy to walk out. Because I had this notion of setting tests up, clearing dues from the last day, planning the day out, planning next day's activities as well, the roadmap at a stretch, because we are at a very tight schedule. Traffic was not a problem at all, because they get millions and millions of views. And it's all about the bottom line, right? The kind of conversion uplift we could draw, and there's a new advertising which was about to roll pan India. So TV commercials and things like that. They're going big scale on marketing. So that's where bought in this regimen, and people actually stuck by it. And there are also questions. Say if I'm getting tens of tests done, I was only implementing the winning variants, and the engineers were like a lot pissed off, because they're like, Sumantha, you're getting me to build like 10 pages, but that is not going on this site.
Yeah, sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the education bit where you have to come and convey that, look, if I say all those tens and millions of traffic, if I draw that to just 100 odd audience, right? And you want to test in such a way where, would you like to split 50-50 and test and wait? Or would you do something which is more incremental, where would you say that for the first 10, you apply a fix, or you apply a particular variant and learn from that, and apply all those learnings that came along your way, and all those insights onto the next 10, right? And that's where you're actually improving your conversion rate. And the kind of test that you've done for the first 10, it's stuck away, because you built on that. You made that more robust. You made that much better. Why do you want to stick with that?
So we're already talking for half an hour, but we haven't actually spoken about what you actually do. So let's take a small step back. So what do you do at Kaspersky? You're a senior CRO there. What are the kind of projects you work on, and how does your team look like, and that kind of stuff? That's what we want to know now.
Yeah. All right. So basically, it's a global CRO team. It's both centralized and decentralized in a way, because it's a huge digital team, and obviously the global CRO team is everywhere, right? We're in the UK, here in India, in Russia, obviously in China, and things like that. And one of the key goals is, or rather for any organization for that matter, is to improve their landing pages. And landing pages is more important, because that's your first touch point. Be it a paid ad or an organic landing page and things like that. And that's where you want to ensure that you're giving the best information out there for your end users. You're having certain frameworks and growth models in place, where it works best for for a particular region. Again, coming back to that US example, maybe that's something which worked in US might not work in Germany because I don't have that local insight in Germany, and that's where you study and bank on research. And we've got a great research team in Kaspersky as well.
Do you mainly work on the B2B or B2C?
It's both. Yeah, it's both. It's both. I mean, it has its separate parallel tracks, obviously, and at times you have to wear a B2B hat while you're working on B2B stuff. It's more like, I mean, at least for people, especially for cybersecurity and things like that, or for any other bigger enterprise stuff. I mean, people might see that as a bit boring, or not as it's more of a perception where people see that this is a bit lifeless than B2C, but that's not the case, right? I mean, you could always tweak things. I mean, you might have less traffic, but you've got chance to do usability tests. You're more qualitative approach where you could bank on certain stuff.
Well, you have less traffic to work with, but the impact can also be bigger.
Yeah, it is bigger, and you could give it your own flair, the flair of the brand for what it stands. For example, for what Eugene Kaspersky stands, what he thinks and believes in, what the organization believes in. And that's the kind of impact that could be drawn than being more saturated, than thinking of this particular opinion that no enterprise clients like something which is saturated and plain and big chunks of text and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's more about being showing that flair and capturing the attention of in the B2B segment, because end of the day, B2B is what? A board of people. Could be a CFO, a CIO, a CEO, and obviously you're going to target one of them and convert them as an internal champion for your product services. And that's how things can change. Sales cycle could be pretty long and things like that, but that's still okay. I mean, at least you know that you're doing stuff that people are admiring, right? Some of the key metrics like people should track ideally is not only like, let's say B2B is a lot more lead gen and things like that. People stick with metrics like open rate, click rates, and things like that on emails. Yeah, and nobody focuses on something like, okay, how many of them actually replied back?
Yeah. Did
you receive a positive message for every email that you sent out? Did you get an acknowledgement? Did you get something in return? That's the kind of conversation that you want to carry out. And one of such B2B deals could be several thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the main bottleneck might not even be on your website, might be email. How do your projects? What kind of people do you work with? So do you have like internal user research, front end development? What are the roles that you regularly interact with?
I mean, everybody, right? Starting from research. Yeah, there's so many user studies going on. From design team, so you've got to get and build mockups. Yeah. There's product teams, there's web product managers, engineers, basically front end QA stuff. The entire, I mean, whatever it takes to run a website, right? Could be technology, product, UX, marketers.
Is there also like someone with an equivalent role like you, but focused on the product itself?
That's where I think I come in, or rather was the original idea of me working for Kaspersky, where it's not only CRO, but I also carry this product mentality and come with an approach where I think a lot about users and how they see stuff and how they perceive stuff, and that's what is at least is one of the duties of product managers, is to interact with customers, get to know how they see stuff. And fill that gap in such a way where the tech team could understand our requirements, and basically that is the case where obviously CRO team internally is leading this initiative, in terms of translating certain requirements where things get simple enough so that it could be built. And it's all about the kind of approach that you take, right? For example, I'm a big believer in lean principles, in lean methodologies. That's something where
the skill set is already there, right?
Build, measure, learn, build. Yeah. The skill set is it's already there. It's the kind of implementation that you have, and this is a big organization. We've got like 500 odd teams internally across different regions, and the sheer amount of uplift that we could get from existing traffic is massive. The opportunities are massive, and given this COVID-19 backdrop, it's very important that we test and learn.
Yeah.
It's there's this high scope of things that we could actually be shipping off. The intensity could be a lot more, and it's also interesting because you get to work with interesting stuff, interesting products, both in B2C and B2B, and some of the best, right? Kaspersky, I mean, at least from my understanding, just last year alone, we've probably bagged 900 patents across US, Europe, China, Russia. So when you're bagging patents, that means the product is pretty good, right? And we've entered I think almost 84 independent test assessments, and we're number one in 64 out of them, and at least top 3 positions in almost 80% of those tests. So that is something, your product is a great fit. It's, we've been doing a lot, especially for the medical community. There's this thing where entire product portfolios of Kaspersky were free for medical institutions, hospitals, and things like that. And it's, I mean, we have that power, right? And that's something which comes from Eugene, where he wants to help people out, and not only Kaspersky related products and cybersecurity alone. He also has this penchant for other startups and things like that, for tourism. I mean, if you go look up his Instagram account, he's traveled all places. Right? And that's where he wants to foster the culture of startups in tourism and things like that. So when you're at that power, when you have that ability to help the society, why not, right?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Because the skill set that we have as CRO can be applied across multiple aspects of the company, right? And especially, I mean, I get that. CRO is often at least first applied in marketing. That makes sense because that's where you usually have the largest numbers. If it's on the website, it's your own. It's an owned medium, and that's where the largest part of your user or potential user base is. So you can run experiments there. But if you're a large enough company, you can still apply these same methodologies to improve the product itself, or the service side, or email, or
absolutely. I mean that's how it should be. I mean, if you're an enterprise with a lot of both B2C customers, I think we protect over 400 million customers.
That should be enough traffic to run an A/B test.
Lot of traffic, right? And we've got like, there's so many stuff that we could do. I mean, it's tantalizing, it's that great. And even on business side of things, on email life cycles and things like that, because you could bucket everything up, right? Okay, what's the welcome sequence that should be, right? What's the nurturing sequence? What's the conversion sequence? I mean, what if like I said before, what if people are not responding? What's your win back program going to be like? You could literally keep on improving every single day.
That's an interesting part. So you have so much traffic, so it might be like a luxury problem. But so how do you? Prioritization is something that always comes up almost for everyone at every company. So how do you decide where you can start working, because you not only have the website, you have so many areas of the business where you have enough traffic, enough people to do A/B testing. So where do you guys decide on what are the biggest bottlenecks are in the whole process of the customer journey?
So obviously, we follow our own prioritization sequencing, and people listening in could be using something like Pi or ICE or any other prioritization template. But it all starts with you have to measure the kind of metrics that you're after, right? For example, if you're taking landing pages and things like that, if you ask me, I not only think about getting first 5 users on the site, but I also think about having those customers for 5 years, right? Think of metrics where it's don't only think about your CAC, the initial traction, and think that okay, your ROAS is 4:1 or something like that. But think about retention, and especially in SaaS businesses and things like that, retention is a big thing. What is that you do for lifetime value? What are the aha moments that you feel across in the entire journey or in the entire life cycle marketing of
that's
your
what
end
I
user,
particularly
right?
like usually about SaaS companies. Often with e-commerce, the focus is really on getting the customer to buy once, because that's easy to measure, of course. But in the SaaS
It's
business, you
that's
don't really care
that's
about that first. I mean, the first month it's important, but it doesn't bring you all the money. It's not that valuable
that's true.
if you just look at the monthly subscription.
And if marketers are focusing on just
Yeah,
buy, you're missing out a bigger chunk, right? And the bigger challenge also, which is on
yeah,
retention. And how do you especially say if you're working on landing pages, which is more on acquisition, how do you prime users so that
yeah,
they continue to go down or renew, right? You've got n
yeah.
number of possibilities
And
there,
especially when you have so much
and
data,
you love
you
to
can
solve
almost
that.
start working on, okay, how can we maybe introduce roadblocks actually to prevent people to
Yeah,
sign up that we already know, okay, they're just going to sign up for 1 month and leave. We're not going to make any money out of them.
absolutely. Absolutely. And on the other side, if you've identified a profitable segment, right, or a user type, or an audience, you could also explore further down, have sub audiences in type, and see what works the best. You could have personalized and dynamic content, which is going
Yeah,
to speak to them. And that's the whole point, right? You're here to help your end users. You're here to show them what's you know uncover product benefits, for example. It's not like, yeah, it's at least in my experience, I've never done something where I get keep everything on the platter and show it
yeah,
to the user's face, because that's a lot of information overload as well, a
yeah,
cognitive load as well. So it's about understanding how people perceive a particular page. I mean, if they're experienced users, would they scroll through the page a lot quicker, just
yeah,
understanding the key points, or if it is a novice user who wants simple explanation as to what a product does. So based on such micro essays, you could actually have a better
yeah,
landing page experience, or site-wide experience. Your cart values could literally go up because you've given them such cues and notions where people could actually understand and understand. Okay, this makes sense. Okay, I've not thought about this particular question, and it's good that the site has covered this in an FAQ section,
yeah,
for example. It's about that, uncovering the journey and actually having this laid out to them where they understand that okay, this is how it should be in an ideal
yeah,
world, and this is what I'm getting, right? It's about there's always this notion of perceived price versus perceived
mhm,
cost associated to that, and obviously that's where you come in and show them the value for a particular service or a particular
yeah,
product, and why they should be using it, and it's not always a yes trap, because it's not like I come to you and say, hey Guido, do you have a minute so that I can explain this to you, right?
yeah,
So that's where I understand
yeah.
what's your pain point, and ask, what if I did this to solve your pain point? Would you be interested to know that, or or do you think that you should just let
Yeah.
that go by? You're like, no, let me know what he's
Yeah.
talking about, right? And just change that perception where you bring in the actual benefit, then being more saturated, than
Yeah.
being, this there's a sea of
Yeah.
sameness, right?
Yeah.
How do you
So
differentiate that?
are there like any particular things that you do within the company to build on that CRO culture to get more people on board with, okay, let's do experiments and let's validate stuff instead of just implementing.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what I think the entire Hero team is working on, and actually building a sphere of influence. And how do we do that, right? We do that by being transparent, by showing them, look at the kind of wins that we're actually winning in your markets, and this is what we could actually be doing, and also go a step forward and help them understand by showing them certain frameworks and things like that, and explain to them that you could actually
Yeah.
be doing this. Yeah, and it's that notion of every employee contributing, right? Let them start contributing. Let the CRO team do the
Yeah.
prioritization.
But how are you explaining CRO to people that are not familiar with it? How do you what are the tactics that you apply to convince them? Hey, you should be doing this, or let me validate this, or however it's arranged. But how do
Yeah,
you try to convince them?
yeah. It's more like, a couple of things could happen. One, if there's an already a believer in the room, right, who understands that Shiro is good, and we should invest behind that. The other thing is there's a non-believer in the room, right, and that's where it gets interesting, and you want to get to a common point, right? This analogy of me speaking earlier of nodding yes to everything, whatever
Yeah.
you read, and how do you get to a common point? For example, if there's a room full of such people, you ask them, do you think you're the most smartest person in the room? Yes or no, right? They might say maybe not the smartest, right? You reach to that common point, and that's what data helps in removing all those assumptions and opinions and
Mhm.
all of that. I am not the smartest in the room as well. It's understanding that notion and coming up with hypotheses that actually create an impact. So that is where you've actually shown to them that this is how it in a way unfolds.
I think when I would
Right?
ask people if they think they're smartest in the room, that almost feels like insulting. It's almost indirectly implying
Or,
that they're stupid.
yeah, or you could also change that and ask, who do you consider is the
Fair
smartest in the
enough. Yeah,
room right
that's
now?
yeah,
And they might say one of their colleague or the manager, either goes upstream or downstream, or whoever is young and new. And there's the point from where we could actually
yeah,
start from, right? And we could, I've used prioritization templates where, including on the client side, I've let them score
mhm,
hypotheses based on their assumptions, based on their biases and things like that, and collectively I've taken a prioritization score and gone ahead with
yeah,
experiments, because what you have to also understand is that there are certain thoughts and processes that I don't understand. Yeah, that a particular company understands, or a particular person who's head of a department
mhm,
understands, and he's going to see that in his opinion, and great stuff. I mean, I might have the greatest test idea and things like that. What if the engineering implementation took like 10 or 15 days? You'll have to weigh certain benefits and actually show
yeah,
traction, right? And that's in your hardcore metrics
yeah,
that you follow, in the kind of
yeah,
uplift and in the kind of revenue
yeah,
that you're getting. And obviously you should not shy away from A/B testing errors, type 1 and type 2, false positive, false
yeah,
negatives, and things like that. Your sample size has to, I mean, even if you hit 99% statistical significance, there's no harm in running that for 2 or 3
yeah.
more weeks. Just to be pretty damn sure that that's what is actually working.
You have accumulated quite some experience now with Stiro. What is an insight that you think you might have that others that are listening right now might not have? What is something that you've figured out that we can use in our work?
I think, yeah, I think what I've actually figured out as a consultant much before joining
Hmm.
Kaspersky was, I was seeing a repeated trend of similar problems coming up, right? Similar problems that needs to be answered, same set of questions, and same set of verdicts like, Sumantha, we did everything. There's no way in the world that you could improve convincingly,
Data can always
or,
be
or
improved.
something else. That's where I saw two aspects to this particular thing. Where one, I thought, in all these cracks, uh, there's always a consultant who could build a product to fix such
Yeah.
problems. It could be anything. Either you super zoom in and build a product, or you go out large, bundle everything, and make a product and solve such problems. So that's one insight that I figured out. And on the other hand, since it is almost rudimentary, right? Even if you stand and deliver outstanding results, it's like, this is what we had agreed upon, and that's it. The engagement is done. Yeah, and or it's like the same questions that keeps on repeatedly coming at you, and there's this notion where at least I felt that consulting could actually come with an expiry date. There could be active consultants doing great stuff,
Mhm.
you know getting paid greatly as well. But I think at some point in time, you'll have to think about making money from product. I mean, how long could you keep on doing consulting, right?
It's
It's
usually
not forever.
limited, and at least how most work is limited to the hours you can put in, right? And there's only so much hours a week.
Yeah, yeah. And if you and it's great that you've done that. You've observed companies at close quarters, and you might come up with
Yeah.
certain product ideas and actually build it, and that's going to make you money while you're sleeping.
That's nice. That's what we all want, right? So what are the
Yeah.
speaking of making money while sleeping? What are the things you want to improve or change in the coming 12 months? What are the things you're working on? The projects that you're excited about?
you know, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening at Kaspersky,
Yep.
tight-lipped. But
In general
obviously
terms.
yeah, in general terms, we're hellbound on improving user experience. There's a lot of stuff which we're actually doing. You could just imagine the kind of sheer amount of work that we're doing, right? Like 2 years of work, which is being shipped in 6 months. So there's a lot of testing
Yeah.
velocity which is coming in. There's a lot of
Mhm.
velocity around, and that's great for any organization, right? Because if somebody is all perked up and is jumping with energy, that spreads. Every each and every organization within that strata, that energy spreads, and that's where I see Kaspersky at. The sheer number of projects, the number of tests that we're doing,
Yeah.
the number of impact and results that we're seeing, the test and analysis, the impact, and all of that. It's hit at a great pace, and things are slowly uncovering. Where we're actually expanding and taking that to different markets, coming with different insights, and that leads to new set of hypotheses, new sets of testing ideas, and that's how it is. There's always
Yeah.
progress, and as long as there's progress, it's better than perfection, right? We're just going out, getting things
Well,
done, and there's positive stuff
we're
coming out of that.
optimizers, right? So we also like to optimize the way we
Yeah,
optimize. So that's it's very meta. Yeah. So
yeah,
thank you so
yeah.
much for sharing all your thoughts about this in the podcast. Like I said in the beginning, you've been listening to a couple of episodes yourself too. So who do you think I should be asking on the show? Who do you want to listen to?
I think I've been mentored by Jacob Dinoski, the guy who runs goodui.org. He's the editor-in-chief, and I think I'm not sure if he's doing an episode before, but that guy keeps on testing a lot. There's just so many stuff that he's been doing on goodui.org. I think which would be a nice addition to this show.
And for
as
the
well.
people that don't know the website, he basically monitors a lot of those the bigger websites like Booking, Bol, Netflix. Those are things that regularly come up, and he basically monitors them for changes on the website and the tests they're running and sharing those results with us.
It's more on his also gung ho about repeatability of winning tests across segments, and he's got a big data repository of such tests. I think he'll be a valuable addition, and I've been tight-lipped on Kaspersky, so maybe our VP of Digital Ivan Imhoff next time when there's a bit of relaxation and stuff where he could maybe literally walk you through around the kind of stuff we've been doing, hopefully. And
I'm pretty sure you can introduce me to Ivan, right?
yeah, for sure.
Let's do that. Thanks. And as a final question for you, any CRO related books that you'd like to tip to our audience? What did you enjoy reading lately?
One of the best absolute gold standards, at least in my eyes, is Dr. Flint McLaughlin. He's got McLabs, Marketing Sherpa, and a bunch of courses as well on landing page optimization, on online testing, and all of that. He's written this great book, which is called as Marketer as a Philosopher, and there's a great bunch. Good stuff on in terms of his qualified how conversion sequence would come out to be. He's got a formula for conversion, so to speak. Out of 30 odd years of marketing research, it goes something like this: C is equal to 4M plus 3V plus 2 whole of I minus F minus 2A. There you go. You're a CRO.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
We don't need those elaborate courses or education. It's just simple as that one single formula.
We do need it, but it's simple and very profound, right? And this the C stands for obviously the conversion sequence. The M in that stands for motivation. V in that stands for the force of value proposition. I stands for incentives. F stands for frictional elements present on the site, and A is anxiety elements. So obviously, these are all the kind of heuristics that come into picture, and he's just given a magnitude for each of this. I mean, if you're highly motivated, even if there are 100 hurdles, you're going to cross all of them, right? And that's where the magnitude of motivation is the highest, which is 4M. Next comes the force of value proposition, which is 3V, right? The next biggest entity with the magnitude. If the force of value proposition is that high, then obviously you're going to go ahead. Similarly for incentives, for friction and anxiety elements. And if you've removed anxiety elements, which is minus 2A in the formula, then that's great. Good for users, good for the site, because you've not induced anxiety or buyer's remorse, for example. You bought a product and you're anxious that, okay, you've not made a right decision. So things like that. So Hess' book is a great read, which is marketer as a philosopher. He covers a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
On biopsychology, on how you have to actually do things.
Yeah.
So that's there. And there's so many books, right?
There are a lot of books, definitely.
Eric Rice on the lean startup.
Marketing books. So we have I'm collecting a list of books that CROs basically recommend. I mean, there's so many marketing books, but on cro.cafe/books, I'm trying to collect all of the books that our guests recommend. But
I'm sure some of these might have come, might have popped up earlier.
This one hasn't been in there yet, so I'll definitely add that to the list. And for people that want to read more about this, the conversion formula, 4M plus 3V plus 2 times 1 minus f minus 2a. That might be a bit
I
abstract,
minus
but
f,
there will
inside
be more information
Yeah.
about that in the show notes if you want
Yeah.
to read about that. Sumantha, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us and sharing your story, starting with evaluating movies. I think that's a background I hadn't heard before. I think that's a great great background for a CRO specialist. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.